Hi, welcome to Slick Willy Flying. Today what we're going to do is the Flathead. This is a great fly for inshore, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, probably pike and perch and everything in between. Just size appropriate hook and right type of hook. It's morning here, so I'm having a cup of coffee today. And let's talk about materials real quick. So for thread, I'm using an olive thread, 140 denier. I'm going to use one Strung Marabou olive feather. I have a piece of fly foam that I've already trimmed to size. I'm going to use some Sharpies to decorate that fly foam, as you can see there. I'm going to use a little bit of Gamechanger chenille. And I'm going to use this, gosh, I don't even know what you call this. I've had this for a while. I would say this is about 25 millimeter. It's just a big chenille, a long chenille. It's not really a polar chenille. It's not, I'm not sure what it is. I lost the original packaging, but I'm sure you could find something similar, if not the exact same thing, in any local fly shop. And it's just got a nice little built-in flash. And then I'm going to use two colors of Krystal flash. So let's pop this out, set it aside, and I have a size 2 Mustad 34007. That was not hard enough. Gotta get it in the jaws good and hard because you're gonna pull hard. That's better. And I'm gonna go ahead and start my thread. Get a little base. I go all the way to about the bend of the hook, and we can trim that off. Now I'm going to give this just a touch of super glue, but I'm going to stay away from the back of the hook, just near the front, just because I don't want, maybe a touch more, just because I don't want that thread to ever spin. Alright, so I'm going to start with a green Krystal flash. One strand is plenty. I'm going to fold it, and then I'm going to fold it again. And this is the reason that I didn't put super glue towards the back of the hook, because I'm going to go ahead and attach it directly. I don't want to wait for the super glue to dry. And we're going to put it right on the back as if it was a tail. Couple of nice hard wraps. Take the remaining, flip it over, just like that. Perfect. And now I can open all those loops. And I really like the way this comes out. It comes out very staggered. Nothing is the same length. You know, I don't see a lot of things in nature perfectly square, so I like it that way. Okay, so my next material is one Strung Marabou feather, which I've already separated. It's I select feathers. You know, I'm sure you've heard me say plenty of times that my go-to fly is a Big Tasty. I have lots of videos for Big Tasties. And this particular feather, while it's a very nice feather, is not a good Big Tasty feather. So when I go through my Strung Marabou package, I have feathers that I like for a variety of different flies, and I really save the Big Tasty feathers for Big Tasties. So why do I say that? It's got long fibers, and it's very whippy, but it has an extremely thin stem. There's almost no stem at all in this fly. So I think it's perfect for this fly. So my length is about the same length as the Krystal flash. You know, the length is anything you want. Whatever you decide to make it, that's the length. But I don't like flies that are overly long. I hate when I get a short strike. It drives me bananas. You know, we go through all the trouble of getting a strike, and then they bite the back half of the fly and miss the hook. No fun. So now I'm just presenting softly 2 soft wraps, and I'm distributing with my fingers to make sure that this Marabou is distributed nicely around the hook. I can always undo and rewrap if I need to. And once I'm happy with that, now I am, and I just crank it down. And all that little fuzz you see there really doesn't make any difference at all, because it's all going to disappear. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to use a Krystal flash in this rusty copper or gold color. One strand is plenty. And I just absolutely love this color. It's a great color. And again, I'm going to fold it in half as equally as I can, which is never perfect. I'm going to put it on the thread. As equally as possible, just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and place it on the top of the hook. Couple of wraps. Now I'm going to make sure that I'm on either side, and I'm going to lock this in. Just like that. Beautiful. And I can open this loop, and if anything is too long, I can always trim them. They're a little too long. I don't like them to be much more than just a hair longer than the Marabou is what I'm looking for. And you saw that I cut them individually, and by cutting them individually, I know that they're staggered. Beautiful. So now I'm going to take this chenille that we spoke about with the flash, and I'm just going to give it a couple of wraps. When I do wrap this chenille, like all my materials, I always wrap in the same direction as my thread, but I want to try and palmer everything as best as I can back. I'm going to use the rotary function, and I'm going to try and just bring everything so that it lays on top of the Marabou. Just like that. Maybe one more. That looks good. So I bring back my thread. Careful not to catch the point of the hook like I just did. And give this a couple of wraps just to secure it. And now I could cut it off. Beautiful. Perfect. That looks great. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start the Gamechanger chenille. And this is a very dense material. You can see it here. It's a very, very dense chenille product. And that's why I like it so much for this fly. It's got this little twist in it though that sometimes is a little pain, but that's okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and, you know, it's hard to, for some reason this material is very tough. I find it easier to use my scissors to expose a little bit of the core thread here, because I want a tie-in point. Just like that. And the tie-in point has to be where the original chenille that we used stopped. So now I'm just going to give this probably one wrap. That's plenty. And I'm going to secure that right there. As crazy as that sounds. I'm going to secure it with a wrap. Now I'm going to get my thread out of the way for a second. Well, actually, I don't need to bring the thread too far back. I'm going to leave the thread right there. I'm going to get this foam. Now, I took a second and I just kind of rounded off the edges on this one side because I want it to be a little rounded off. And this is the side that's towards the tail, which makes it very difficult to round it off later. So now you have to think about your length. where do you want the foam to be? I want the foam to end right where the Gamechanger begins. So something about like that is where I want the foam. Doesn't much matter what side the Gamechanger is on right now. Sometimes things just get in your way. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put a wrap or two. Double check my length. I think it was a hair long. So I'm going to undo a wrap. Foam is not the kind of product that you can pull on. Alright, that I like better. So now I'm going to go ahead and give it a little tug. And I'm going to go ahead and bring a couple wraps under. And now I do get my thread out of the way. And now it's important that we continue wrapping. It's important that this first wrap is nice and tight. And we go all the way to the front of the fly. And that's plenty right there. I don't want to wrap over the front of the fly, over the eye of the hook. I'll bring my thread back, capture the Gamechanger chenille. 3 wraps is plenty. And I can trim off that chenille. Okay, now before I bring down this foam, I'm actually going to again make sure that I like the placement of the foam, and then I trim straight down the middle. I trim a little path where the foam is going to sit. Because I want the foam to sit fairly flat. Just like that. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to try and draw back as much of the fibers and capture the foam at the front of the fly. Now, depending on how much foam you want, and the foam is going to help this fly float, is how long a foam piece you want to put. So, for example, on this fly, here's a black one, I have a little bit longer foam. And this fly will float a little higher in the water column. This fly is going to sink a little more. And that's going to be a trial and error deal for you. You will learn what it is that you prefer. So now it's just a whip finish. Give it a second whip finish, just to be sure. Perfect. Now I could take my scissors and I trim this off pretty close. Just like that. Alright, so now I need to start trimming a little bit before I start doing any eyes. So what do I initially, right away, you see I have some fibers here that are going the wrong way. They gotta go. Anything that's going the wrong way has to go. Now, I don't get crazy here, because any fibers that are covering the eye of the hook, I take my needle and a lighter and I singe them off. So that's the first thing. Then I take my fly. It's a lot easier sometimes if I don't have it in the vise, and I just want to spread out as best I can all this Gamechanger. So I see the way it's actually gonna look. The Gamechanger is a thick material, but once you start spreading it out, you realize it's not as thick as it looks. I'm just gonna move it around and just get it all shaped out. Just like that. Then I like to take a scissor. I usually like to take a little bit bigger scissor. I like to make as many long cuts as possible. But with this fly, you have to be a little careful. I mean, you're really going for a shape. And here's the shape that I'm looking for. You're going for this little cone-ish kind of head. So I'm gonna end up trimming the sides at an angle, and I'm gonna end up trimming a little bit off the bottom here to give it this shape. And I suggest that you take it slow. You know, you take your cuts real slow because you can't put anything back. Once you trim it, you can't put it back. So just remember that. And then this first chenille that we put on, this polar chenille, this one, I don't want to trim any of this chenille. I want this to remain. So you have to be careful that you're only trimming the Gamechanger. We're getting to the point where we can start thinking about eyes anyway. And I guess I forgot to mention eyes in the material introduction. But we are going to put some epoxy eyes on this fly. Okay, back to the vise. Okay, so for eyes, I'm using these really cool, they're 5.5 millimeter oval black and silver. They are from Fly Dressing. These things look cool. I just love the way they look. So they come with a little bit of adhesive already on them. And in the event that the adhesive doesn't work, I have to take 1 second here and just clean up. I have a mess. A sip of my coffee before it gets too cold. Okay, so like I was saying, they come with a little bit of adhesive on the package, but if they, for some reason, sometimes the adhesive doesn't work great, and then I use a little tiny bit of super glue. I'm gonna use UV resin to lock them in, so if I can avoid the super glue, I really prefer to avoid the super glue, because it just gets a little bit more messy. So I'm going to go ahead and try this on my side first. I use the eye of the hook as my guide. So I'm right behind the eye of the hook, and I am just under the top of the foam, which makes it super simple to then repeat the process on the opposite side, right behind the eye of the hook, and damn near even with the top of the foam. And when you do that, your eyes come out looking really nice. So now I'm going to take a little bit of UV resin, and I'm going to stay away as much as I can from the foam. I'm not going to touch the foam. I'm going to try and lock in the eyes from the eye to the material underneath, because I don't want to put any UV resin on the foam and then I won't be able to decorate the foam. You could decorate the foam first, but I have found that sometimes there's like a bad reaction with my Sharpie and my UV resin. I've seen my Sharpie actually run because of the UV resin. Maybe that wasn't a Sharpie, maybe it's unfair to call it a Sharpie. But all I did was give a light coat on the entire eye, made sure I ran it off the edge and onto the Gamechanger chenille. And now I feel comfortable that this eye is locked in place. And we'll do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And now those eyes are pretty tough. They're not as bulletproof as when I make some of my other heads, because I didn't go actually all the way around the eye and lock them in. But they're fairly tough. They'll take a lot of good strikes. And now that the eyes are in place, I see that I'm going to do a little bit more trimming underneath. But before, actually I'm going to trim right now. I'm going to trim first, and then we'll mark up the fly. I need to pop it out again. I'm sorry about that, but it's just not easy to trim with it sitting in the vise. Alright, so now it's time for the Sharpie. So what I like to do, I'm going to give this a little amphibious feel to it. I like to start with a green. And then on top of the green, I cover it with some brown. So I'm just going to give it some random green spots. Nothing, you know, nothing too... I'm really trying to stay away from being any form of symmetrical at all. And then I come in with a brown and I go around the green with my brown. Again, nothing too... everything has to be random. I think that's fine right there. So now you have two choices. I can either use a flexible UV resin, or I can use this Loon soft head. Here, I'll show you what I mean. This particular fly, this was done with Loon soft head. And I like the Loon soft head. It's a flexible finish. Nothing wrong with it. I think it looks great. It's a fairly inexpensive product because you get a lot of material for what it is. I also like the idea of using a flexible resin. The flexible resin gives you I think a little harder finish. So on this one I used soft head. On this one I used soft head. That's Loon soft head. And all I did here, I took the exact same foam, the exact same color foam, and a black Sharpie. Made it black. So, you know, you don't need to buy 50 colors. You just have to have a little imagination. But we're going to go ahead and use flexible resin on this one. And part of the reason I'm going to use flexible resin is because now I'm going to go over the eye. Going to make sure that the eyes are locked in nice and hard with the foam. You know, you don't really need any resin at all. It's not a mandatory thing to put a resin on this. And you can see right there, it's making my green run a little bit. That's what I didn't want, but it'll be all right, especially now if I cure it right now. It still looks pretty amphibious, which was the goal. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this in my windowsill, and it will sit in my windowsill till tomorrow. And like I said, this is a great fly for redfish, snook, juvenile tarpon, really juvenile because that's a small hook, all the inshore species. It's equally at home chasing smallmouth or largemouth or perch or, you know, all those freshwater species. I can totally see a largemouth thinking this is some kind of a frog or something and just destroying it, which is always fun. And yeah, there it is, the flathead. The last thing I'm going to do is, I don't have it with me so I can't show you right now, but I'm going to take a needle. I'm going to light my needle with a lighter, and I'm going to singe off these little hairs that are covering the eye. It's not even necessary. You don't, I mean, I see them, but it wouldn't stop anything it wouldn't stop you from tying a hook on. Tying this to your leader. Sorry. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget the Slick Willy Fly is now on Instagram. Check me out on Instagram. And I'm going to be soon, when I have enough viewers on Instagram, I'm going to do a contest for Instagram viewers. And yeah, thanks again. See you on the next fly.